New Haven Board of All Services Committee will be on Thursday, 26, 2022 at 7 p.m. New Haven Board of Alder's Chamber, 165 Church Street, New Haven, Connecticut, to deliberate and act on legislative matter 2022-0228 resolution of the Board of Alders of the City of New Haven accepting the list of program proposals applying to receive donations of the City of Connecticut 2 Neighborhood Assistance Act. These items are on file and available for public inspection in the Office of Legislative Services with 165 per or honorable Charlie Grant, the chair. Attest honorable Smart, City Town Clerk. If you need accessibility related accommodation, please contact 203-946-7651 voice or 203-946-8582. In accordance with the City of New Haven COVID-19 requirements, all attendees must wear a mask unless you are approaching this bench and you are having a hard time speaking through the mask. But then I would ask members of the committee to ensure that you are masked so that they can allow a person to testify on mask for that moment. Public comments may be sent in by public testimony at newhavenct.gov and asking members of the public to please ensure that your cell phones are on silent as we go through today's procedures. We'll begin this meeting by introducing members of the committee, starting from my right.
Stephen Winter, Ward 21.
Darrell Rackeen, Ward 26.
Alex Susan, Ward 1. Evan Nelson, Ward 1.
And I'd like to acknowledge colleagues that are present with us on today. Alder Carmen Rodriguez, Ward 6, thank you. Alder Honda Smith, Ward 30, thank you. Alder Sarah Miller is with us. Thank you very much for joining us. So we'll begin today's legislative matter by welcoming our dear friend, Captain Shore. Please state your name and address to this record and you can begin your testimony.
Captain Shore, 174 Road, State of Connecticut, and New York. Thank you for having me here. I'm here in reference to the 2022 Neighborhood Assistance Act Tax Credit Program. It's a state of Connecticut DRS program that the city is a liaison for DRS in order to obtain their program proposals. The program itself is for nonprofit entities that have a community program that services the Lomond community. The program's purpose is that they can obtain donations from corporations to those programs, and the corporations will get a tax credit from the state of Connecticut. There's no funding from the city of New Haven. It's just administrative costs from my time. Let's see. The list presented to you tonight are program proposals submitted with the programs and the percentage of credit they get. So it could be 100%, so it's $1 per dollar, or 60% tax credit, which is 60 cents on the dollar, depending on the type of program that is being donated to. And the statute requires that our legislative body approve the list so that we can present it to the state of Connecticut before July 1st. So my second request would be if you could discharge us straight to vote in June. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much. And on tonight, as you all may have observed, we have representatives of the organizations that are present on tonight. I don't know if anyone want to, kind of facilitate anything on your own, or?
I had the members that had submitted program proposals present tonight. It's something new I did this year, just in case you had questions in reference to the programs that they submitted. So they're here if you have any questions.
Are there any questions from members of the committee to any of the organizations present? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public wishing to testify? Are there any members of the public wishing to testify? And as they're approaching, in my hand is a small microphone that is voice activated. If you intend to speak, you really need to speak up and to ensure that this microphone is as close, uncomfortably, unfortunately, to your mouth as possible. Please state your name and address for the record.
Jean,
You don't have to press it.
Jean Ledbury, 152 Winslow Drive, West Haven, Connecticut.
David Grudberg, I'm with Carmody Torrance, Sandak and Hennessy, 195 Church Street in New Haven.
You may begin your testimony.
Thank you. Mrs. Ledbury and I are here because, well, first of all, let me make clear, I'm here on behalf of 5 entities. Edgewood Corners, Edgewood Elm Housing, Inc., Edgewood Village, Inc., FOH, Inc., and Yedidi Hagan. Can you guys hear me okay, by the way, through the mask? I'm happy to leave it on. We're here because Mrs. Ledbury, on behalf of those 5 organizations, received a letter dated May 13th from Ms. Schroeder indicating that all 5 entities which had put in to be included in the list that is before the committee today, that they would not be approved this year, despite having been approved last year and any number of years going back, and Mrs. Ledbury can speak to that. So I appreciate the letter invited testimony, and that's why I'm here. The letter indicated that there was a finding that the programs of these 5 entities did not meet the eligibility requirement under the relevant statute, which is Connecticut General Statutes 12-632, because of litigation surrounding the assets of these organizations, which could jeopardize their ability to implement, I'm paraphrasing there, and complete the programs. I think some history is in order. Just so the committee understands where we're here, it's our position that the denial or the omission of these entities from the program this year is both contrary to the law and, more importantly, a major detriment to the city of New Haven based upon the track record of these entities over a 20+ year period, with which Mrs. Ledbury is quite familiar and can speak to that. As I said, they go back a number of years, back into from the late 1980s, continuing into the 1990s. These entities were founded and acquired a number of properties. I know it's north of 40, I believe it's closer to 45 at this point, in the Edgewood Elm neighborhood of the city. At that time, the neighborhood was suffering from blight, suffering from degradation of property. And these nonprofits acquired these homes, or multifamily homes for the most part, and renovated them, turned them into quality, affordable, low and middle income housing. And they have been a tremendous boon to that neighborhood, the Edgewood Elm neighborhood. I am not naive, and I recognize that the driving force behind these properties at the outset, and for many, many years, Daniel Greer has been an enormous lightning rod in the city in connection with this process a year ago, and so on. So I want to acknowledge the proverbial elephant in the room, but I don't think that should distract from the real question here, which is, are these appropriate entities to be submitted to DRS as potential beneficiaries of the NAA program, the tax credit program, which has been used over the years to help fund this neighborhood transformation that I'm speaking about. By way of history, I was involved in representing Mr. Greer in connection with his criminal case, and a number of people wrote to the court, including a 22-year former member of the Board of Aldermen, Elizabeth McCormick, to talk about the salutary effect these organizations have had on the Edgewood Elm neighborhood. I took the liberty of making a number of copies of the relevant letters. I will pass those to the members of the committee with your permission. The letters go back about 2.5 years in connection with the sentencing proceedings, but I think, as I said, the insights that are offered are particularly insightful. I don't mean to burden the record or your time with by reading them, and you'll have them to consider. But the one on top is from Elizabeth McCormick, who, as I said, was a 22-year member of the Board of Alders, and some of her observations really speak to the both the positive impact of this NAA program generally, and the positive impact of these entities that have been shut out this time on this neighborhood. She says, I witnessed firsthand the positive influence Rabbi Daniel Greer and others had on our neighborhood. The nonprofits purchased 40 houses, mostly multifamily. Some of these have been drug-infested, crime-ridden, and the like. She talks about how the neighborhood in the 80s had become a sad, depressing, dangerous place. People who had owned homes in the neighborhood had fled. These nonprofits, the ones we're here on behalf of, with the help of grants, I think we're probably talking about tax credits there, refurbished the houses they purchased, carefully restored. They're now home to low and middle income people and ethnically diverse families. She talks about neighborhood beautification undertaken by the same entities, planting of over 400 trees, repair and replacement of sidewalks in the neighborhood. You have this material before you, and the committee can review it at your leisure, but I think the overall message that I would like the committee to be aware of is that these entities have had a tremendously positive impact on that neighborhood for a lengthy period of time. And by not giving them the opportunity to receive credits this year, and by omitting them from the list, it undermines their mission. It undermines their the work that they have a long track record of pursuing, and it ultimately hurts the city. again, I'm not going to review all the letters. One of them is from the owner and founder of Edge of the Woods, which is in the same rough area, rough neighborhood, more on the, what would be considered, I guess, the northern border on Whaley. But he talks about, again, the incredible impact that these nonprofits had on the neighborhood and in transforming them in conjunction with his institution. There's a letter from an individual named Joel Perez, who works with Maple Carpentry, who did a lot of work with the nonprofits. He speaks glowingly of the work the nonprofits did in the neighborhood. Likewise, we have similar letters from people in the neighborhood who were familiar with the history over track record, over 20 plus years, and know what a difference it made in everyday lives in the neighborhood. This is the first year, to my knowledge, and Mrs. Ledbury can speak to it, because she has more history than I do, that the 5 entities we're speaking on behalf of today have not been included on the list that goes to the state for consideration for the program. The same legal state of affairs that is cited in Ms. Schroeder's letter of May 13th existed a year ago. Notwithstanding that, the programs were approved out of the Board of Alders, or the entities' applications. All of their papers are in order, as far as I know. Mrs. Ledbury can speak to that, but I know she worked very hard with Ms. Schroeder to ensure that whatever the LCI wanted was provided, and all of their papers were in order. Now, let me talk a little bit about the cited reason to exclude this year, beginning this year, from the 5 entities from the program. Then I'll turn it over to Mrs. Ledbury. Ms. Schroeder's letter references General Statutes section 12-632. That statute, which is generally the NAA statute, says not one word about pending litigation and litigation being a potentially disqualifying factor for consideration for the tax credit program by NAA and DRS. Let me explain a little bit about the litigation itself, because it gets it can get a little complicated. The pending litigation, there is a civil judgment outstanding only against Daniel Greer and the Yeshiva of New Haven. The holder of that judgment has sued these nonprofit entities, in essence trying to say that even though I don't have a judgment against them, even though they didn't do anything wrong in my mind, I should be able to collect against them the judgment I have against these other entities. In the law, it's something we call reverse veil piercing, which is, I could try to explain it, but it probably cause everybody's eyes to roll back into their head. But I think the important thing I want to get across is there is no judgment against these entities. We have someone who has a judgment elsewhere trying to say, hey, we should be entitled to your assets, even though at one point 2 of the entities were sued, and they dropped the suit against those 2 entities, didn't proceed against them. Yet now they are coming back and saying, hey, we should be entitled to your assets, even though we don't have a judgment against you under the law. Suffice to say that that lawsuit is being vigorously defended, not by my firm, by Dave Pitney, who are also at 195 Church Street. And in fact, there has been a motion for what we call summary judgment, a motion for judgment in favor of the 5 entities, dismissing the case against them, that has been pending for more than a year. It was filed in April of 2021. It was fully briefed, I want to say, as of the fall of 2021, and we are awaiting, the entities, I should say, are awaiting a decision on that judgment. If that were granted, on the motion rather, if that were granted, the case would be open and there would be no pending litigation. So I'm happy to answer whatever further questions any of the committee may have about the details. I don't want to overwhelm anybody with law, as I said. I know not the most riveting topic, but again, it's important because litigation is cited. So, bottom line, before I turn it over to Mrs. Ledbetter, I would urge the committee to reconsider the decision to exclude all 5 of these entities from the list that's submitted to the state, and to add them to the list. The track record of these entities speaks for itself and is something that both the entities and frankly the city should be proud of, because it is a shining example of how this program has worked exactly as it was intended. There are dozens, if not hundreds, of individuals living in nice, low to middle income, affordable housing because of the fact that these entities were able to participate in this program in years past. Legally, we are exactly where we were a year ago. Nothing has changed. They were approved a year ago and submitted to the state for their consideration. And I would urge the committee and ultimately the Board of Alders to do the same. Any concerns about pending litigation, I think, can be addressed with contingency planning, or, it's a problem if it's deemed a problem, which I don't think it is. It's not even mentioned in the statute, but I think there are ways to address it in the event that DRS and NAA approve credits for these entities, but I think they should at least have the chance. Thank you all very much for your time.
Excuse me, allergies. I have been working with NAA in the city and been involved one way or another for the past 20-something years. What we do is we finish, repair. Most of the houses in our housing area are over 100 years old. And to say the least, they are wearing out. We just recently bought a house that a family had been in for 90 years. She went into a nursing home. The family approached us as, we would like you to have the house, buy the house, because we know you will take care of it. So we got the house, and once we went in, they'd been in there for 90 years, the family, and it was a total, the furnaces were wrapped in asbestos. To even have our workers go in, we had to have the furnaces, all the asbestos removed from the furnaces. We replaced furnaces with energy efficient furnaces. All our appliances, when we could get them, the last couple of years have been hard because of COVID, with all energy. We put in double pane windows. As windows have come, we have, through other city grants, planted trees, repaired sidewalks. We keep them up. We have tenants that have moved away out of state and come back. The first thing they do is call us to say, do you have anything for us? We have tenants that have been with us for 20 years, have not moved in all these years, and are very happy and continue living here. Some of the houses we buy are, the plumbing and everything has been stolen out of it. We have to start from square one and totally rebuild these houses and restore them to what they were like in the early 1900s when they were built. We do not put carpeting, tiling down. We take the floors down, have them refinished to look like they did. The natural original wooden woodwork is maintained. We very rarely have a vacancy. Trying to think what else. We have been awarded awards. New Haven Preservation Society gave us 808 Elm Street. It was one of the houses we bought. It had no water pipes, no furnaces. We totally restored it to the way it was. This is a historic house. And we were awarded an award for it. We have a couple other houses. The UI that we've worked with for many, many years with NAA. We invited them up to take a tour one year. They came up, they went around, they were so impressed that they asked if they could come back with their photographer and take pictures and use it in their outreach to get other nonprofits to apply for NAA. We have tried, we have not raised rents, like I said, during the COVID, because we know these people they're working people. They're low, and many of them were out of work because of it. So we worked with them. Is there any questions?
Thank you very much for your testimony.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a pretty lengthy night, so we do appreciate your testimony for tonight.
Just one more.
We actually do not have any more time. I've actually extended a lot of time to you. I'm so sorry about that.
I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Are there any other members of the public wishing to testify? The New Haven International Festival's Arts and Ideas, is there a representative here? Okay. Actually, you can just stand there. I sent an email some time ago, and I'm hoping to receive a response. If someone could respond back, that'd be greatly appreciated.
Great, I'll check it.
Okay,
Thank you
thank
so
you.
much.
Okay, anyone from the public wishing to testify? Seeing none, we'll close the public portion of the hearing. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Well, do I hear a move? Somebody move it. Second.
Second.
Hearing moved, King second. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, abstention. Public portion has been closed. You all are dismissed. Members of the public. Staff, stick around. Are there any questions? Conversation, discussion?
Question staff.
So I will say this, does it pertain to?
Just general.
About. Oh, the process.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So we can just, it's just a general question. Come on. Oh, you're awesome.
So I just had maybe use my thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity. I just had a quick general question about the NAA for the process. Just two things. Is there a limit on how many programs, appear on the list? And
No.
Okay, thank you for that.
No.
Well, thank you for that. And then just out of curiosity, how is the credit percentage? Because there's entities that have 60%.
So there's energy efficiency, if they do some, sorry. If they do energy efficiency upgrades in their program, if it's to light bulbs or windows, that's 100%. It's a dollar for dollar tax credit for any corporation that donates to that program. If it's a non-energy efficient, if it's a youth program, let's say for summer camp, then it's 60 cents on the dollar.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other general questions about NAA? I forgot this is a freshman team. So,
That was my question.
okay, good. Okay. All right, thank you. Okay. Yeah.
Me?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At the state level, is there a cap on the amount of tax credits?
There is, and you're gonna ask me that question off the top of my head.
No, not asking you to say what the number is, but.
There is a cap for what they give out.
Okay. Do you have more information on that?
Corporation Council. I just want to make sure I think I heard the question correct. Is there sort of a total cap on how much of the tax credit across the state? Or is it specific to New Haven? Okay.
Well, I guess I was asking about the whole state.
I believe that the total number, the total amount of tax credits is $500,000.
I believe that the total number. And hold on to it.
So it is conceivable that the program could run out of tax credits. If nonprofits across the state apply for amounts, they use the funds up, and someone would be left without tax credits.
That part of the program is solely determined by DRS as to how the tax credits get allocated. So you can offer to, so a company could offer to say, so someone requests $150,000, that's the cap on what the donation could be. Say that the program, the project that they're proposing, rehabbing a whole house set, and it's going to cost them $150,000. When DRS allocates, if the whole amount offered, so a company could offer to fully fund that $150,000. And they look at the list, the approved list, and they say, okay, sure, we want Steve Winter's historic restorations for low-income housing. We offered to donate $150,000 to that project. If the whole cap is going to exceed $5 million, I believe DRS can make that decision as to how they allocate that and reduce that. So you don't, the nonprofit wouldn't get the full amount, and the company wouldn't get the full amount of the tax credit. So they can, I think they have that legal so they can make sure that all of the, as many of the programs across the, the approved projects across the state can receive some funding.
One of the representatives from the five nonprofits said that the attorney said that he didn't believe pending litigation, which could impact the nonprofit's ability to carry out its mission, was a relevant criteria. Can you speak to that at all?
Before we do, I just for the record, so I advise members of the committee not to offer any comments concerning pending litigation pursuant the issue that's on the table. We're only talking about the organizations that have been presented and been recommended for tonight. If you choose to talk about it, we'll do that.
Okay, well, I suppose could you provide any additional context about our role in the approval process?
Actually, when this issue, similar issues were raised last
Yeah.
year. And we, in our office, and I was involved in the review of the statute, we read the statute to say that we had a relative, that the city and the board of aldermen had a relatively narrow view. Look at, do in fact, are the applications complete? And if they were, if they are eligible in that they meet the requirement that they are for housing or one of the delineated purposes.
Objective,
and so we recommended last year that regardless of the litigation status, that they be included on the list, and that because we read it that the state actually had the final say. We received guidance from the state in response over the course of last summer and last fall, specifically saying that it is their opinion that the city has the sole discretion as to who is included on that final list. And if the General Assembly has delegated that authority or that role to the city in compiling it, we were concerned that the pending litigation would impact their ability to carry out the programs as proposed. And so that's why they're not included on the list. Again, we invited them to offer their testimony, and so that you could make a decision, so this committee can make a recommendation, and the board of aldermen will make a final decision as to whether to include them both there at the end of the day. But we were concerned that the litigation would impact their ability to complete the project.
questions to members of the committee? For staff? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have an item on the agenda. Would anyone like to move it?
I move the item.
Aaron moved, Larry second.
Second.
Aaron moved in second, discussion on the item and the recommended, the recommendations presented to us on that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I think staff has made it clear that the state has delegated the Board of Alders the authority to determine which entities and at which amount, which and their programs end up on the list. And, you know, my recollection from last year is that there, you know, he's right in the sense that it doesn't say anything in the law about pending litigation, but it doesn't say anything about criteria generally. So I think if we have the authority, then it really is left up to our discretion. You know, I think that I think that the list before us is reasonable, and that the concerns that staff have brought up are also reasonable. I think, you know, looking at the landscape of all of the projects and knowing that there's a limited amount of resources that are available, we can also take that into account in terms of what we believe will best serve the community. It's similar to the process we undertake with CDBG. So I think the list before us is reasonable, and we should support it, move it to the full board. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Discussion. Seeing none.
City staff has asked that you not vote on this so that it can be discharged
That's right.
at the board level. So at this point, you don't need to take any action if you want to give them that opportunity.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What is the deadline for approval?
July 1st.
July 1st.
July 1st.
Okay.
And our board meeting in July is July 5th. So if you
Oh, and
do
we're
it,
on the summer schedule. Of
Correct.
course. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
No problem. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Let's see.
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Good. Hold on.